So this is the brand new COROS Nomad, a watch meant for outdoor adventures, including stuff like this. But I've been putting it through its paces in plenty more locations, from open water swims to normal trail runs to city runs, you name it, to figure out where it works well and where it falls short. Now, as much fun as it would be to go ahead and do the entire review out here, I've still got 17 more kilometers to go today, including all the way up the top there. So I'm gonna get going and we're gonna finish up this review down in the trees. So down here in the woods, the first thing you're gonna notice about this watch is that it leans very heavily on looking identical to a Garmin Instinct or a Phoenix series watch. But before you judge too heavily, keep in mind that Garmin's own Instinct watches are modeled and draw incredible inspiration from the Casio series of watches. And while both the Instinct 3 and the COROS Nomad share a lot of similarities, there are a ton of differences that I'm gonna outline right now. So the very first thing though from a hardware standpoint on this watch is that it does have a new 1.3-inch MIP-based display. That display is brighter and more contrasty than COROS's existing other MIP-based displays. Additionally, you'll also notice on the top there's mineral glass as opposed to plastic, which you've previously seen on a lot of their budget watches. Now, of course, using a MIP-based display means you're going to, generally speaking, get longer battery life than AMOLED displays, though in last year or so, we've seen most of those watches from a GPS standpoint start to kind of get pretty darn similar, Suunto being a good example of that, and even COROS themselves being a good example of some of their watches being AMOLED and MIP-based almost identical from a battery standpoint. In the case of the COROS Nomad, here's the battery chart down there, down below. You can see 34 hours in dual frequency, which is the default mode for this watch, or up to 50 hours in the all systems GPS configuration. Now, if we look at that 7.5 hour long trek up to the glacier and stuff we started this whole video from, in that case, we went from 100% down to 80% in a dual frequency configuration, and that was with navigation, by the way, as well, running in the background there, and also with the optical heart rate sensor. So that gives us about 2.7% per hour, or roughly 37 hours of battery life, exceeding the 34 hours claim. So kudos there. COROS, good job on that one. Next up on the side right there, you've got the new action button. Not at all like the action button from the Apple Watch Ultra. Not at all in the exact same spot as that button at all. And not at all customizable just like that button is customizable. So the way this action button works is by default, it doesn't actually do much of anything in the normal smartwatch configuration. Instead, it's really about the sport profiles. So in a given sport profile like running or trail running or cycling, whatever the case may be, all of those are sport profiles. You can customize what the button does. So by default, the button will simply just switch your views, but you can also customize it to go ahead and add a voice pin, which we'll talk about in just a second. Now, I would say I love COROS's ability to customize this on a per sport profile basis, but I think they put the cart before the horse a little bit here because you can't customize it across the board. I like to be able to say, hey, by default, I want to set a voice pin anywhere across any sport. And then if I wanted to on a given sport profile basis, maybe I want to do something different, but they're missing that first part there. Thankfully, I'm guessing that's a relatively easy thing for them to do, so hopefully they do it. Now, as I alluded to just a moment ago, one of the things you can do or trigger from that action button is a voice pin. These are basically voice notes that are geotagged, and they're primarily done during sport modes. And the way this works is that it uses the new dual microphone array on the COROS Nomad. This is COROS's first watch to include a microphone of any sort. Notably though, it does not have a speaker, so do keep that in mind. There is no speaker here, so you can't play back those voice notes from the watch. Likewise, you can't play back any sort of spoken words or music. There is a beeper to be very clear, so it'll still make chirps and stuff like that like it would in the past, but no speaker. In any case, to create those sport notes, you can either assign it on the action button, or you can go down to the settings and create a voice pin there. It'll then locate GPS from the skies above and allow you to create that voice note. When you do that, you'll see it'll start recording automatically, and you can speak into it and tell it whatever you want. The idea behind this is if you're out for a run and have some brilliant idea, you can go ahead and just record that right away. Here is, for example, what I did in the middle of my run trying to decide my Strava title. I'm going to nickname this adventure the Glacier Express. That's going to be my Strava title. Some variant on that. Now, one of the cool things that it does, as you can see down at the bottom there, is it automatically transcribes that message. That is a super nice touch. You'll also notice it's displayed on the map on the side there as well, those little dots. That's basically showing where the voice note is pinned. So I can go ahead and see the exact location that I was for that particular epiphany that I may have had. It's the final countdown. On the hill we go. Now, a couple of notables about this. Number one, you effectively have to have GPS. You can go and try to create a voice note through the settings menu whenever you want, but it's going to immediately look to the sky and say, find me my GPS. You can escape out of that if you want to. It's cumbersome. It's as simple as that. But there is not a cohesive like place to see all of your voice notes. You have to know what activity it was that you had that epiphany in, and then tap through all those individual voice notes to find it. Still, this is way better than Garmin's voice notes implementation on a lot of their recent watches with microphones and speakers. In their case, while they do geotag the note, you can't see that anywhere in the Garmin Connect app, or can't see the voice note at all in the Garmin Connect app, so it ends up just in this big pile of stuff on your watch. You can, though, at least play it back on your watch, which is handy. What's funny about this is I wish that both companies would copy what the other company did to complete their half of the pie. Like, the pieces that COROS did are great, and the pieces that Garmin did are great, but they need each other's pieces to make this whole thing useful. Nonetheless, I still remain kind of skeptical on how many people are actually using this function in real life, but I do appreciate that COROS has done a good job of implementing it in the way they have today. Speaking of things that I would appreciate, if you could just watch this video to the very end, that's the only thing the YouTube gods care about these days, and it really does help out the video and the channel quite a bit. Next, COROS has included full offline mapping in the Nomad. That is notable not so much because COROS already did it in the Pace Pro at the same price point last year or something like that, but because of the fact that the Instinct 3 at $150 more, upwards of $500, does not have offline mapping at all. So I appreciate that COROS has topographic offline mapping in this watch, and also added new features to their stable of mapping features. The first one is they've added POI to it, so points of interest, to the map itself, so you can see those POI nearby. Number two, they've added labels to the map, so you can see labels on streets and so on right there. And number three, they've made it more clear what's a street versus what's a trail, which is helpful as well. So COROS continues to up their game on the mapping side. Now, the way those maps typically work in real life is that you go ahead and create some sort of route or thing that you're going to navigate, usually an app like Strava or Komoot or COROS's own app, and then you can load that to the watch. This is my one complaint about this area, is that this is still kind of clunky. In the case of Garmin, for example, when I create a route on Strava or Komoot, it automatically just syncs to the watch. I don't do anything at all, like it just magic happened. In the case of COROS, I have to go into the app, I have to refresh a few times, get a display, and then manually set that route to the watch, which is fine, but it's not awesome. I just wish it would do it automatically. Nonetheless, once the route is on the watch, you can open up an activity, choose to navigate, and then choose the route that you want. You'll see some stats about the route, and you can reverse it if you'd like to as well, and turn on and off things like off-course deviation alerts, etc. As you're going along during your route, you will see your route overlaid on a map, of course. You can zoom in and out if you want to, and then you'll get churn notices as you approach a churn. If you go off course, you will get a notice that you were off course, and you can get yourself back on course again. But this is sort of a key difference between what COROS is doing and Garmin, really what anyone else is doing in Garmin, in that Garmin can do offline rerouting and navigation versus COROS, Suunto, Polar, etc. can't do that offline rerouting. So if you go off route, you have to get yourself back on. That said, like 0 to 1 times per year will I use the offline rerouting or offline routing capability on the Garmin watches. I just never do. I got my route, I'm gonna follow my route, and I can usually find my way back just fine. So I don't consider that to be a big gap, but it is something to be aware of in case that matters to you. Next up, COROS has changed the way they display and talk about 7-day training load. They made kind of a big deal of adopting a 7-day rolling training load, something I've been asking for a long time. But once I dug into it, I realized they didn't really do what everyone's asking for. So there are basically 2 pages you can see your training load on a COROS watch. The first one is your 7-day training load, and the second one is your overall training status. Most companies use a 7-day rolling training load because that's how your body works. Your body doesn't reset every day. For example, I'm filming this on a Monday, so it shows 0 training load right now. My legs are feeling yesterday's run and the day before's run and so on, but unfortunately it's not showing that. Now, COROS said they were changing this, and they did kind of in the app and only in the training status if you dig down far enough, but you can't see it on the watch, which is the point, and nor can you see it on the watch's training status page. They don't display the one metric they need to display there, which is that rolling 7-day load. COROS, you're the kind of last man standing here, so if you could just get on board, that'd be great. There's a good reason why everyone else does it as a 7-day training load, because that's the way it should work in real life. In any case, my little tangent aside, let's talk about fishing.
Okay, a quick important update here. It is just shy of 2 in the morning, about 8 hours before this video goes live, and got an email from COROS that they're going to change the entire training load thing to exactly what it should have been, a proper 7-day load on both the watch and on the app side in all the pieces. It seems like they might be a little bit nervous about what I'm going to say based on all of the questions I've had back and forth around this feature, but kudos to them. They're going to get themselves themselves out of Crap Creek. They can go fishing somewhere else now. And that's in the good book in terms of the training load pieces. With that, back to the video.
So COROS has really pinned their hat or put their hat on the tree or whatever you want to call it on fishing in the case of the COROS Nomad. It's where most of their marketing effort is going, and they've added a bunch of new fishing modes. In particular, they've added fly, lure, boat, shore, offshore, inshore, kayak, boat fly fishing, and shore fly fishing. Each of these modes you can customize individually, and so the way these modes work is that once you choose which mode you're going to be in, you start that, it's going to start a GPS activity associated with it, and it's going to keep track of time and whatnot behind the scenes. However, the fishing tie-in comes when you go and tap that lower right-hand button. Here you can log a catch if you want to, as well as log cover and structures, and a log both the times and locations associated with this. You'll be able to see then in the watch the number of times you've caught a fish, and then afterwards in the app you've got effectively a fishing log, which includes your catch log, it includes your best fishing times, your any POIs you've marked, and so on, all displayed right there. You will see these new environmental data pages there. This includes things like the temperature, precipitation, the wind, your barometer, your tide levels, and moon phases. You can customize this, again, just like any other sport mode if you want to, remove them, add them, etc. That is all there. In addition to that, COROS has also added new depth data to their maps. This is actually visible across the board, whether or not you're in fishing or otherwise. But honestly, it's horrific. Like 99% of the depth data is missing, and everywhere I looked, it's like they didn't put enough quarters in the machine, and that's all they got out of it. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but hopefully that improves. On the bright side, that could only get better. Like, it can't actually get worse. It's as bad as you could possibly be from a depth data standpoint. In any case, I had hoped to send my wife out to do some fly fishing this week to get a whole bunch of data on this. That's actually her jam. She loves fly fishing, but has not quite worked out yet schedule-wise. Maybe later on this week. Still, it's cool to see this and cool to see COROS kind of venturing into new areas. Whether or not they can make a name for themselves in the fishing realm remains to be seen, but you know, the world's your oyster, or something like that. Now, one last kind of area I want to mention before we get into some of the accuracy bits is the so-called journaling areas. And this takes some of the pieces we saw earlier with those voice notes and in the COROS app, and we can now add in videos and photos to it as well. So you can add those things in. You can go ahead and share that out to your friends using a private URL. So you can share this link out to someone else. They can go into that journal and they can see all your photos and videos from that particular thing, your voice notes, etc., all in one handy shareable page. There's a new 3D option there, very similar to what you might have seen on Strava, and I think Polar has something as well like that. So that's definitely pretty new to COROS and cool to see on their app side. So with that, let's dive into the accuracy from both a GPS standpoint and a heart rate standpoint. It uses the same sensors and GPS chipsets as the past, so I wouldn't have expected to see much different here, but nonetheless, we will quickly look at things.
Okay, this section will not take very long at all. Starting off in the Alps here on the first day, you can see as I go up this little section right here, surrounded on both sides by steep rock cliffs, they're pretty much spot on. Then again, later on, as I traverse across this with rock cliffs on one side of me, it is good. The next day coming up under Mont Blanc here, in the dense forests, and all the units are very, very close. Some slight variances, but just a couple meters apart from each other. If I look at the elevation graph there, they are virtually identical across all 4 units, despite shifting weather. So let's head into New York City, kind of the urban jungle, to make things a little more difficult. One of the first things I thought was interesting is this section underneath the viaduct here. It is spot on, despite huge buildings on one side. As we exit Central Park a little bit later on, it does Mario Kart around the corner, but all the units did. Not a huge deal. And then as I come down the home stretch here, things are pretty good. You could analyze this a whole bunch of different ways. I thought it was interesting how the COROS has a nice smooth graph, but is in the buildings versus the Garmin's kind of jitter briefly at the crosswalk and kind of split the difference between in the buildings and in the street. Meanwhile, the next day, they all sort of flip-flop places and kind of do the opposite. Now, looking at this open water swim here, the COROS does a great job here. One of the best COROS performances I've seen today in open water swimming. One could quibble slightly at the very end of this track, but again, very, very minor. Now, switching over to the heart rate side of things, this relatively steady state run got off to a bit of a rough start on the COROS side. You can see that drop there at the beginning for no obvious reason, but after that, it was fine. The next day on this kind of slow build run here, a number of little quibbles there and there, which I don't really love. It's not like horrifically off, but it's not great. On this interval run here, you can see it kind of misses some of the starts of the intervals, but is overall not horrific. Generally speaking, one of the better COROS performances, and surprisingly, it actually does really well in this outdoor cycling ride, about 3 hours long here, doing a really nice job job in sticking to that chest strap and matching those values. Overall, I'd say the GPS here joins the industry-leading camp across the board, which is good, but the heart rate does seem to lag a little bit behind industry leaders, regardless of what price range you want to talk about. Okay, so where do we stand overall? Well, I stand in the woods. But in terms of this watch, I'd say this is probably one of the best COROS watches to date. An incredibly competitive watch. Well, priced at $350, I'd say it is absolutely at the sweet spot of pricing here. An incredible deal. You look at the pricing of the Garmin Instinct 3, starts at $400, goes up to $500, but that doesn't include offline mapping. Yes, there are a lot of other features that Garmin has, including, for example, solar, giving them far better battery life on the solar side of things that COROS doesn't have. But when it comes to mapping and the features that a lot of people may use, Garmin is oddly missing that at this price point when many of their competitors, if not all of their competitors actually, have that now in the sub $500, sub $400, even sub $300 price points. I think if you're looking for an outdoors watch that gives off those rugged vibes, this is definitely something to consider, and it can be put up like side by side with something like the Garmin Instinct in terms of the features that most people use day in and day out. Ultimately, I have very, very few complaints about this watch, and the few things that I do find kind of quirky, I think COROS can fix in software updates down the road, and they've shown a very strong inclination in doing so every quarter or so, or sometimes more frequently than that, over the past couple years. So kudos to COROS on this one. This is a really good little watch. With that, thanks for watching. There is a ton more sports tech stuff coming out, not just this week and next week and the week after. And dude, September is going to be bonkers around these parts. There are some days with, I think, like 6 products on the same day dropping. So hold on to your hats, folks. And it's going to be a fun one. With that, have a good one.